go.
All right, guys. In the previous talks, I talked about budget cuts in low income community education schools, and I mentioned how President Donald Trump in 2018 is trying to cut $9.2 billion out of education, and that has been the biggest budget cut since 1983 of Ronald Reagan. That's pretty much a really big chunk of money to come out of the school systems. It's pretty clear that the schools need this amount of money to fund things like the textbooks and the teachers and school buses and everything else that incorporate with the school system being successful and teaching the kids. A lot of people also, on the other hand, a lot of people also say things like, well, maybe schools don't need $9.2 billion. Maybe they're just like they're over much of their budget. So they're going out finding ways that these misconceptions could be maybe it's a good idea to cut this 9.2 budget type. And so the first one I would mention is people are saying that when they cut this much money out of the school systems, that this will finally be able for the school systems to cut back on the bus routes. Now, cutting back on bus routes, of course, it would save because gas prices do go up, so it would save money on gas prices. However, the people who think that this is a good idea to cut this because of too many bus routes and that's causing like traffic in middle of the rush hours, they don't consider the fact that cutting bus route means less students in school. So cutting bus route means less students in school, and that's only because it's so many people depend on in low income communities anyway. So many of those students depend on the bus to take them to school. Some of these children parents do not have cars or transportation period, so it's kind of hard for them to actually get to and from school. Also cutting bus routes out, eliminating them would mean to widen the school walk radius. That basically means that if the school walk radius was 5 miles from the school, that would move that to 10 miles. Imagine a kindergarten walking 10 miles to school every day. That's just unrealistic, and that also caused problems for things like stranger danger and also things like hit and runs in the school zone area. A lot of drivers aren't responsible enough to slow down, to stop driving, to not watch it for kids in a crosswalk, or to not pass the school bus stop signs. And they don't consider that when little kids are walking back and forth to school. And data from the National Highway of Traffic Safety Administration states that 327 school kids have got hit in between the years of 2004 to 2013. So that could have been anybody's child. So basically, the people who are saying that this budget cuts would be beneficial to the government because of not having the money, they don't think of the kids that could be hurt, that could be hit. So the second misconception people think about is teaching methods. So after cutting down teaching methods and the budgets, they think that things like paper usage is such a big deal to the point where it'll save about $1 million of that 9.2 billion, but it won't. It's true enough to say that teachers do send papers home daily, and it could be packaged of paper getting sent home daily, but at the same time, how else would this information get to the students' parents? People are saying that these parents could use the internet access. Sites like Moodle. Moodle is basically like a site you can log into so the teachers and the parents can communicate. But what if that child does not have internet at home? How do they get this access to these documents that are needed? Things like homework and things like just information regarding like what the school are doing, period. So how these kids get access to these things. And it's not as serious as to cut 9.2 billion just for paper costs. Like that's one of the lowest things that they should be able to cut for. And another thing that they're saying that would help also would be like technology is to not make so much, not to spend so much money on textbooks, but to bring in iPads. In in community schools, who can afford an iPad? Who in the family can afford an iPad? How can they afford iPads for kids alone? So how would they be able to even use any of the money that they're cutting to be able to bring in new technologies to teach these kids? It's not as, I know it's understandable that one iPad won't do the job and it won't bring the money in and the cost in, but think about those same 327 kids needing technology, needing textbooks, needing papers going home to their parents, and then the same people who are saying that these monies should be cut because of paper usage, and they're more worried about paper being caught up besides teaching actually the kids, actually teaching the kids the material that's needed. The third thing that I would mention is cutting the education with basically after school programs. I know when I was a kid, I used to love going to after school programs because you can meet your. This is the one time of the day you actually get time to socialize with your friends, and you can also get homework help. Because a lot of these kids in low income communities, when they go home, they don't have anybody to help with the homework. So when they stay later for school, the teachers can help them with the academics. It can help promote like leadership. It can help promote friendships. It could do a lot of different things, like promote growth and like just academic success, period. So cutting out after school programs would mean kids would be going home. Because some of these kids actually stay later. Some of these kids stay later in after school programs for their parents to get off work and come in and then be at home. Sending home these kids right after school system, they would be home alone, doing homework they don't have a clue what to do on because if they all just go back and ties in together. They would be walking home because of cutting the bus, then they would be getting back home to no textbooks, no technology to help them understand this material because the $9.2 billion cut. So these three big misconceptions is not as big as people making it seem. These things are not gonna come into play as soon as possible, but at the same time, it's like the fact that they're thinking about that things like paper usage could be cut to save $9.2 billion in the school system is it just really blows my mind, and I don't think it's really fair because everybody know kids are our futures. Like, if we don't plant these seeds into the kids, what else can we do with these kids? Like, we don't want to see these you basically have to get the low income community kids you want to get them out of their product of their environment. You want to bring them out of what they're growing up in. So taking them from a home that barely got the stuff they need and then also sending them to the school that don't have it at the same time, it's like a repeated cycle. We're trying to get these kids out of these cycles. So basically what the next thing we're going to talk about is what are we going to do to put this plan into action to stop budget cuts of $9.2 billion in the education system.